Good evening, everybody. And my name is Brittany Schlenk. And for this Ignite presentation, I want to talk about elements that make data visualization impactful. So I liked this image just because it really kind of kicks off the presentation around making sure that your data is only as good as your ability to understand and communicate it, which is why choosing the right visualization is essential. I got that from the HubSpot article out of Module 3. And I thought this image did a great job depicting the different elements of data and then how do we make it the right way in a good visualization. And then I wanted to kind of jump into some of these key elements, including the different types of visualizations, which is bar chart, pie chart, line chart, area chart, scatter plot, bubble, and heat map. A good kind of sense of foundation of where we start. And then speaking of foundation, from the Interaction Design Foundation, they kind of point out the different key graphical elements that make these data visualizations as impactful because these specifically represent different aspects of data. From HubSpot's Data 101, they talk about the different kind of do's and don'ts of data visualizations. I thought it was just important, really, to make sure we have that clear understanding of the foundations before we kind of jump into more detail. And so since in the previous image, they didn't really talk about this one, but I really liked the timeline, which is actually a really great, unique representation of a history milestone for data visualizations since it came out in 1765. And it shows a kind of elapsed time from a starting point. So those are really where timelines come into play. Other things that are new on the horizons. This is an infographic chart, another type of data visualization. I believe it's newer just because I think we're always on the go and we're looking for data visualizations that tell clear messages quickly and efficiently. So that's kind of what this infographic chart does. And then we jump into kind of Gantt charts, which are commonly used in business. They represent periods of time, but differently than a timeline does. I've seen these kind of in business more or less. They kind of show, again, elapsed time, but while also showing where the gaps are, overlaps, etc. We jump into heat maps. This is another kind of graphical representations of data and where kind of big populations sit. You want to make sure with these, you're very specific around kind of the targets because when using these incorrectly, it potentially could show the wrong story. So then I wanted to jump into different types of dashboards. So dashboards are especially kind of the in thing today because they display a ton of data quickly and all at once. In a world of kind of big data, there are always these tools that we want to kind of make sure we're showing all the data. So for this specifically dashboard, this is around the financial world, and this depicts kind of the big key pieces utilizing different types of graphs. This one is more for the HR sense, which you can see there's kind of more white space being utilized rather than kind of all crunched together. And this one is an executive dashboard, which, as you can see, we have a variety of types of charts and graphs. We have bar graphs, and then we have a heat map. You have some pie charts. Again, it varies, especially depending on the target market. So yeah, I wanted to kind of show that kind of foundational piece just because I really want to jump into some kind of specific use cases of how to make good data visualization and how it can be impactful. So in Steve Wexler's and colleagues' Big Book of Dashboards book, they depicted like well over 50 different use cases and scenarios of kind of how do we create these good visualizations, what are recommended, and kind of the why. So for this specific scenario, what I'm calling business scenario 1, the data is needed and to be depicted by a target market of chief operating officers, a chief digital officer, and kind of really the leadership world. They're trying to understand the performance metrics and the billable hours and income, kind of what the actuals are. So in this image specifically, they utilized a bar chart specifically only because, as you can see, they give the overview of the function and then the percentage, but then they break the percentage down and it's graphically pleasing just because you can see everything up front quick. So then we jumped into kind of the dashboard layer. Again, mind you, it is going to the executive target market, but I like that they, at the first layer where you see 1 and 2, they depict kind of the high level major numbers they want to see or KPIs. And then layer 2 to 4, they break down kind of the first level of detail, I would call it, and then the second layer being kind of the big detail into the functions. And so then the second scenario I want to jump into is kind of around the call center world. I mean, think about when we call Bank of America, or if we're calling our cable company for help, their call center reps are kind of based off of numbers. So in this depiction, they use a dashboard as well, but they have kind of all different types of charts and graphs and visualizations. So I thought this would be a great example to jump into. Since they want to understand the real-time performance, I like that they use a bar graph, which is a little hard to read compared to the other one, but it does show kind of that average speed of answer quickly. Another kind of key thing I noticed was they are asking for top 5 agents. In this, they just kind of used a really simple 3-column table, which goes like the rankings, and then you have faces, and then you have their names. I mean, it's simple and easy, and I think that's kind of why I like this piece. And then as part of the dashboard, you also see things like this, where it's kind of the bar charts overlaying to show kind of good, bad, goal. And then they also have kind of that KPI metric that's bolded. And the arrow obviously automatically indicates they're either going above target or they need to go. Lastly, you also have some different bar graphs, again, specifically with a different type of scale. And then you have correlating line graphs that kind of break into that second layer of detail. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I'm looking forward to kind of doing more research. For me, data visualization is big, just because back to the point around our world's all around big data. I think it's important that we are understanding how to do it correctly, which is why I like learning kind of around the foundational pieces as we jump into the kind of the business use cases. So I hope to talk to you guys soon, and please let me know if there's any feedback.